Hello, guys, and welcome back. It's so good to have you here with me today. And I'm really excited for this episode because I'm going to be talking about something that I actually struggled with for many, many years. And it's one of those things that is actually going to change the game in your business and in your life. It's such a simple concept, but it's something that we actually just really forget about. And so we're going to be talking about your feelings in your business. And, we're obviously all humans. It's very human to have feelings and go through all these different emotions at different times, depending on what's going on for you, what's going on for your business. Um, but just because your feelings are valid, it doesn't mean that we want to allow those feelings to dictate our behavior. Because when we do that, that's when we start spiraling. That's when we start getting stuck. That's when we don't build momentum. And so we're really going to be diving into that today and just exploring that delicate balance between acknowledging and navigating our emotions in a really healthy way. Um, and not allowing those emotions to stop us from taking required steps and required actions in our business, and not allowing those very valid feelings to dictate our actions, because that is not healthy. And so, before we even dive into this too deeply, I want to start by just saying, I don't want anyone to take the wrong side of this and hear that, hey, Robin's saying don't listen to your feelings, because your feelings are very valid, and our emotions, our feelings are a natural part of the entrepreneurial journey. It's a natural part of being human. And I don't want us to not validate those feelings. Like, we need to acknowledge that, hey, I'm feeling this way. This is what's coming up for us, because we also don't want to be those people that just like stuff everything down and don't even feel our feelings. I'm a very emotional person for sure, and I feel very deeply all the time whenever things come up, and I acknowledge those feelings, and I accept those feelings, and I feel those feelings. And that is really important. I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, we have to stifle those feelings down. We shouldn't be feeling the things. We have to feel guilt when we feel like stressed about something, or we have to feel guilt when we feel scared to do something, or when we feel overwhelmed by stuff like this. Like, those feelings are a natural part of your journey. And there's just an abundance of examples I have from my personal life and my personal journey where I have felt so, so scared. Like, so much fear has come up. Like, I've had situations where I'm literally physically shaking with fear. And a lot of people would be like, oh, that's a sign you shouldn't be doing that. That's a sign you shouldn't take action. That's a sign that you're like, this is no bueno for you. And I just want to share like that, when I've leaned into that fear, when I've leaned into that discomfort, when I've acknowledged like, wow, I'm terrified and I'm going to take action anyway, that's where the growth happens. That's where the confidence starts getting built. That is such an important part of it. And so when you're getting these feelings of fear, of like discomfort, it's actually a very natural biological response to keep us safe. Our bodies and our minds are literally biologically wired to keep us as safe as possible. And in our mind, like, that fear of failure and vulnerability can seriously prevent us from taking action, because a lot of the things we're doing in business, especially, no offense guys, as a jewelry business owner, like, the risks are so low. You're not putting your life in danger, but our body feels like we are. Sometimes our body sometimes is like, oh my gosh, this is too much, like, this feels dangerous, because maybe many, many years ago, when it was a vulnerable, like, putting yourself in a vulnerable position where people can see you, people can judge you, you're standing out, that may have actually affected your ability to stay alive, but not in the world that we're living in today. And so when you have that fear of failure and that fear of being vulnerable, and you allow that to like stop you from taking action, it's actually like nothing to feel bad about, because it's actually your body's biology keeping you safe. And so I want to talk a little bit about the role of our mind in keeping us safe, because our mind is there to protect us. It's a protective mechanism which is going to constantly, all the time, be alerting us to potential risks in life and dangers in our environment, and monitoring the situation and being like, oh, this is good. Oh, this is not so good. Oh my gosh, there's a car coming. We better stand back. There's little things all the time. And fear is a very valuable emotion. Like, fear plays a crucial role in prompting us to avoid situations or avoid behaviors that might lead to us getting harmed. Like, it's a very valuable emotion, and it's not something that we don't want to feel, because it literally keeps us alive. Being able to feel fear enables us to keep living. And so that fear response really activates our body's stress response system, which prepares us to either confront and like go in for the attack with the threat, or to flee from it. And if you are in a constant state of feeling fear, you'll be building your business from a place of fight or flight, which is not really a fun place to build your business from. Um, and so, that sense of fear is very valid. It's very real. It's very healthy. Um, but when you have a fear, like a deep-seated fear of failure or a deep-seated fear of being vulnerable, it can really prevent you from taking action, and it can inhibit you from taking the required steps that you need to take to grow as an individual or as a business. And it can keep you in the same place. And to me, there is literally nothing worse than being the same version of myself 1 year from today or 2 years from today. I can't think of anything worse. Like, and this is not saying you don't love yourself how you are, but if you think of the person you are right now, which I'm hoping everyone feels good about the version of yourself you are right now. And I think we can all admit that there's another version of us that is even more confident, that is even more open, that is even more connected, that is even more vulnerable, that is even just a even more authentic version of ourselves, that we are working to close the gap between the version we are now and the version that we want to be. And to get to that version, we're going to have to be vulnerable. We're going to have to make decisions. We're going to have to change things that we're currently doing. And change can lead to failure. Change can lead to being vulnerable. And when we see like that potential failure in your business, let's say you're making six figures in your business, but deep down, like, you want to be making 500,000 a year. You want a team. You want to have more flexibility. But this is going to require you embracing maybe being the face of your business a little more, maybe being a little bit more bold, more outspoken, getting yourself onto podcasts, being seen so that people know about you. And when they know about you, they're going to care more about your jewelry. So doing something like that and recognizing like, this potentially is the next step for me to actually step closer to that version of myself I want to be. But that feels so uncomfortable. That brings up so much fear, because what if I fail? And what if I go and do all these like cringy, embarrassing things and I don't make it? What if that happens? Well, that's a really legitimate feeling, because that failure is seen as a threat to our self-esteem and to our identity. And it can trigger really deep-seated feelings of feeling inadequate. It can trigger feelings of feeling shame. We can feel disappointed in ourselves, or we feel like people around us are going to be disappointed in us if we just don't meet the expectations that we maybe put out there. And so what we really need to do as business owners is we need to lean into being vulnerable. you need to embrace being vulnerable, embrace opening yourself up to the possibility that, hey, I'm going to do what's required and I might fail along the way. I might get rejections. I can guarantee if you're in business, welcome to the world of rejection. You're going to get way more no's in business than you're going to get yeses. That's the nature of the game. And if you can see it as a game, if you can chase the no's, I get my clients actually to literally collect no's. Because if we see collecting no's as a game, if we see it as wins, it makes it way easier to go out there. And when you go out and get way more no's, you're going to get way more yeses than if you did nothing. So, embracing that that is a part of business that, yes, can be unsettling, yes, can cause anxiety, but that it can actually also be fun if we change our perspective. That's a really important thing to recognize, because when we don't change our perspective on fear, it can lead to us in like taking actions or behaviors that are going to avoid any form of pain. So that can lead to procrastination. That's not a fun place to be when you know you need to do things and you just keep putting them off because you're waiting till you're ready. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but you're never going to be ready. Like, life is always going to throw things at you. I can't tell you, like, I have clients who have newborns who were like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'll be ready. And here they are, they're building their business with a newborn. I have people in and out of hospital. I have clients going through breakups and divorces. And there's never the perfect time. If you think you're waiting for the perfect time to take action, it's never going to happen. Life likes to throw curveballs at us, and you can still take action at different paces during those different seasons of life. But what can happen when we have that very real fear is that instead of taking action, let's come up with a really basic example. Let's say you've been posting consistently, you're growing your business, you have customers, you're doing maybe like $5,000 to $6,000 a month in sales, but you're hesitant to show up too much with your face on social media. You show up occasionally, you do like a little bit, so you've shown some effort there, but it feels deeply uncomfortable to be seen too much. It feels like the focus is all on you. It feels like you are like looking for attention. It feels really uncomfortable. And so instead of doing that, which we know based on data is going to impact your sales, is going to impact how connected you are to your community, is going to have a positive impact on your business, instead of taking that action, we may retreat into our comfort zones or even engage in behaviors that provide temporary relief but hinder our long-term growth, which is like just basically even little things like being like, yeah, no, that doesn't work, and telling ourselves these stories that doesn't work, or nobody wants to see me, or people aren't going to buy more because they get to know me. We can tell ourselves these stories. We can engage in behaviors that make it harder for us to show up. We can just retreat into our comfort zone and be like, well, this is working for me now, so I'm just going to stick at it, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you are into embracing growth. So we're going to want to push through that. And so what we need to work on is overcoming that fear of failure and that fear of being vulnerable. And this requires a really big shift in your mindset and a willingness to really embrace that discomfort and that uncertainty, because nothing's certain in business. Like, there are no certainties. Like, what I can guarantee in business is that it's going to have wins, it's going to have losses, and you can choose to see losses as a personal like reflection on your self-worth, or you can see losses as an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to learn lessons. And I assume I'm going to have lots of losses in business, and if I'm not having losses in business, it's because I'm not taking risks. And to me, that is failure. That is like not a good place to be in. That you're literally, if you haven't failed at anything recently, if you haven't made mistakes recently, it tells me you're so in your comfort zone. You're not even willing to risk little things, which isn't going to impact you on the big in the big picture. So we have to shift our mindset. We have to embrace that discomfort and uncertainty. And I always like to say to my clients, like, feel the fear and take action anyway. Like, lean into that fear. And so we want to reframe failure as a natural part of your learning process rather than seeing failure as a reflection of our self-worth. This is really, really important, because if you tie your self-worth into your results in business, you're going to spiral. You're going to spiral. There's just no way around this. So you need to make sure that you are working to just detach yourself from your business and your results and the outcome of the steps you're taking, because you can't guarantee how everything's going to turn out. That's not life. It's not business. And so you have to cultivate a sense of self-compassion. You have to build resilience, and you have to really see all these setbacks, see all these challenges as a really incredible opportunity for growth, for expansion, for learning. And whenever I personally like have little things that fail, I I honestly don't care. I'm just like, okay, this is really good. This has given me this information. So now I know next time I'm going to do this differently, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to change that. Like, it doesn't stop me at all. I just am like, great, I got this information really quickly. Now I'm going to tweak, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to keep moving forward. Because to me, it's just information. I'm very detached from the outcome of a lot of the steps I take in business. And that's why it's easy for me to keep taking those steps. Because let's say, for example, when it comes to social media, let's say you feel very attached to the results that you get when you put posts out there. So you're doing posts and you're very attached to, if I don't get X amount of sales from my posts on a monthly basis, that means people don't like seeing me. That means my jewelry is not really worth anything. That means people don't want to buy from me. When you attach so many different emotions to that required action in your business, it's going to make it hard to post every day. It's going to make it hard to show up, because you're going to have attached all these expectations to those required steps. Now, do we want you to drive certain amounts of sales from doing that? Yes. But again, there's no guarantees in business. So for some people, they'll be doing it and they'll get results very quickly in like 3 weeks. Some people, you need more consistency, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. And at the end of the day, you're playing the long game in business. You're there to build a sustainable business. So in the big picture, like 3 months is really nothing. And so you need to be able to show up consistently for the required amount of time. And if you've attached your self-worth too much to the outcome of these different steps, and you don't see the outcome you in your mind created that you should be getting in that certain time frame, you're going to struggle to keep showing up to the point that you actually see results. So we want to cultivate that self-compassion, that resilience, and really recognize that, you can't fail. You can only learn, and you can keep moving forward. Now, when it comes to being vulnerable, it does require acknowledging that, hey, we're not perfect. There's going to be lots of imperfections here. We're going to maybe say things that we kind of are like, I don't know if I should have said that. We're going to have to start taking risks, even when we're not too certain what the outcome's going to be. But by doing that, by taking those calculated risks, by confronting those fears, we can really shift our comfort zones and build our confidence in navigating life's different challenges. So it is one of the things that I would say has really helped me build confidence in myself and my abilities and my ability to pivot and my ability to deal with difficult situations is by stacking evidence. How do we stack evidence? Well, we take action. We do what's required. We keep taking action. We lean into the fear, and we take action despite the fear. Now, I want to quickly talk a little bit about the thinking stage, because being in a thinking stage in business is so comfortable. There's nothing more fun than having all these different colored pens and notebooks and brainstorming and thinking. And being in that thinking stage is very dangerous because it's very comfortable and it's easy to stay there for weeks or months or years. And you feel productive because you're like, yeah, I'm thinking about it, I'm planning it. And in your mind, what you're telling yourself is, I'm making sure I'm so over prepared with this stage that when I go out there and take action, nothing's going to go wrong. I'm setting myself up for success. I'm being responsible. What you're really doing, unfortunately, when you're in the thinking stage, is you are protecting yourself from being vulnerable. You're protecting yourself from potential failure. And because you're not taking action, you actually lower your confidence. It does impact your self-worth, and it makes it even harder and even scarier to take action down the line when you actually do. And when you go and take those steps and take those actions, you haven't started building that resilience. So then when you do have little failures or little setbacks, it knocks you big time. And an example I see of this in the jewelry industry all the time is, like, for example, new designers who have spent 6 months to 2, 3, 4, 5 years developing their collection and designs and creating this collection. And they haven't started selling yet because they're thinking it through. They're planning it. And let me tell you, they're putting in a lot of work behind the scenes to do that planning and thinking and processing. And really, all you needed to do was start taking action from day one, and you'd be a million miles ahead from where you are right now. But it's that fear of like, well, what are people going to think? And who am I to do this? And what if my pricing's wrong? And what if this isn't perfect? And what if this collection doesn't make sense? And what if like how do I name these pieces? And it's like those little basic things that people get so caught up on. And it's just their body's just keeping them safe. It's like, hey, we've created this collection, but let's do everything we can to make sure when we launch, everybody thinks this is amazing and nobody's judging us, and that it's a overwhelming success on day one, because otherwise it's going to impact how we feel about ourselves. So it's really something to be aware of. And I'd love for you guys, if you're listening, to just take a moment and think to yourself, like, have you ever got stuck in the thinking stage in business before, or are you there right now? And how does that make you feel? Like, what are you thinking about? What are you doing to keep yourself safe? And what are you avoiding? That's the real question. What are you avoiding? And why are you avoiding moving into the doing stage? And the reality is, often you can't fail if you never really tried. So being in the thinking stage is essentially the dreaming stage. I always like to talk about, like, are you a dreamer or a doer? Because typically entrepreneurs fall into two different categories, dreamers or doers. So the dreamers love the idea of it. They love the concept. They're going to overthink. They're going to plan. They're going to dream. But the doers just take action. They bring it to life. They make it happen. They lean into the fear. They lean into the discomfort. And the doers are putting themselves in a position where they can fail, where they can be judged, where they can be criticized, where they can be like, have all this negative feedback. But the dreamers will never get to that place, because being a dreamer is a really safe place to be. You can tell people, oh my gosh, I am working on this jewelry business. It's going to be amazing. I'm really putting my heart and soul into it. Like, I've been working on my designs and it's so beautiful, and it's going to be launching in a few months. And like, I'm going to do this. But you're actually are not doing anything, even if you're developing your collection and stuff, because everybody is going to be, people love hearing the ideas of a business, and they're going to validate you for that. And they're going to be like, wow, I love that you're doing that. That's so awesome. And you're not going to get any negative feedback because you haven't even tried yet. So you can't fail. And so make sure you're not hanging out in the thinking stage. I would hope that our listeners are like taking action now. Like, let's move it. Let's move along out of the dreaming stage. If you needed a little pep talk, this is for you. I don't want any of our listeners to hang around in the thinking stage of business. It's so depressing. Let's shift out of that. Let's commit to taking action tomorrow. So think of one step you can take tomorrow. Let's go do it. Whatever it is, you know what that is for you and your business. Now, I do want to talk about overcoming that fear and that resistance to taking those actions, because it's very real. I know some of you are thinking like, okay, Robin, I know what I need to do, but like, it's really scary. It's really uncomfortable. It's really like I I actually feel physically like sick at the thought of doing that. And I get it. Like I've been there. And the only way to work through that is to take small, tolerable steps. So for example, I do this with my clients in the Jewelry Business Academy because you guys know I'm all about embracing being the face of your brand. And do you know how many of my clients hate that when they come in? They're like, I'm going to do everything but this. And I'm like, okay, let's just bring you in and we'll work through this. And I'd say 80% of my clients don't want to be the face of their brand when they come in. Like they come in kicking and screaming around that little element. And it's okay because the reality is there's so much fear there. And what we do is we actually have a way of them just taking very small, very tolerable, low risk opportunities to lean into that fear. And so we take them on a very easy, like 10-day challenge essentially to get them breaking through that fear in a very safe environment, as safe as it can be, where nobody's judging them, nobody's criticizing them, but they're taking the required steps. And then we shift gears and we slowly build their tolerance. Because if you do feel a lot of fear around something and you just dive in the deep end, that can cause a lot of trauma. So we don't want to do that. We want to take small, tolerable steps, and that's going to look different for everybody. But we don't want to avoid taking those. We want to work out what's the smallest step. Let's take that and let's lean into that. So, when it comes to that fear in business, when you are an avoidant person, when you avoid being vulnerable, it is going to hinder your progress. It's going to hinder your growth so significantly. And there's so many ways in which it is going to hinder your growth. It can hinder your innovation and creativity because when you're scared of being vulnerable, it stifles innovation. It makes it hard to be creative. It makes it hard to take risks. It makes it hard to adapt and pivot when you need to, when the markets are changing, when maybe your collection's not doing so well. It makes it hard to seize opportunities for growth. It makes you more of a person who's going to slam doors shut than walk through open doors and like embrace new opportunities. Innovation only really thrives in an environment where people feel empowered to share their perspectives, where you feel safe to experiment with different things, where you feel that like you guys know how that feels when you're feeling creative and you feel like you're ready to try things in your business. Like that you can't do that when you're in a state of fight or flight. It doesn't work. That creativity is a kind of bonus. Creativity doesn't come when you're in a survival mode situation. That's just the reality. So the other thing that this can impact is your decision making, because when you avoid being vulnerable, it's going to make you a much more cautious decision maker in your business, which is okay. I mean, there's value in being cautious to a level, but it can cause you to make very safe decisions. And safe in business is not going to get you very far. There's no reward without an element of risk. And that reluctance to take risks can result in you missing out on opportunities. It can lead to you being more stagnant. And it's just like, it's not a place to build a business from, like, not a place to build a business from at all. And it can also, if you have a team, if you're at a place where you already have a team, it can make your team members also just feel apprehensive to share ideas, apprehensive to come up to you and like give feedback. It is going to impact the whole team, not just yourself. And so you want to build a business in a way that you're embracing being vulnerable, so that your team, as you build them, also embrace being vulnerable. And that is going to foster openness, transparency, and it's going to help everybody, yourself included, learn from your failures and move through and move forward, rather than getting in this place where you're all so scared of making a mistake that you don't do anything at all. So the other thing I would also just say is that like adaptability and resilience are so important, especially just in the world we're living in right now. It's not a nice to have, it's an essential. You need to be adaptable, you need to build resilience. And if you have a deep seated fear of being vulnerable, it can impact how well you're able to pivot when markets shift, or when there's unexpected challenges that come up, which, hey, we know in business that happens all the time. That's the name of the game. And to be honest, that's why I love business. I love the like how things change. Like I find it super fun personally. That's why I can't do a normal like boring job. Like I like the ups and downs. Like I find it fun. I love solving problems. And so when you kind of embrace that, you're better equipped to pivot. Like you see pivoting as like, oh, this is going to be fun, rather than, oh my gosh, like what if this doesn't work? Like I've pivoted so many times and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that this is happening because I want to try this out. I want to test this. I want to do this. Let's see how it goes. And I know if it doesn't work, I'll just pivot again because I've built that resilience, I've built that adaptability, and I know that I'm going to land on my feet no matter what. Like I've built that confidence in my abilities. And you can do exactly the same as well. Just requires starting with baby steps, starting to take action, stacking evidence that, hey, you keep taking these scary steps and you're okay, you're alive, your heart's still beating, and you'll build confidence by doing that. And then by just being consistent, you're going to start building that resilience. And I have a whole other podcast, I think, on resilience. So you can listen to that if you would like to. Now, we've touched a little bit on the dangers of overthinking in business, but if you get super caught up in overanalyzing every single step in your business, it can lead to being really stagnant. And, here's a non business example for you, because this is just something that just drives me crazy. If you go to a restaurant with friends and you get a menu and you've all never been there before, I mean, some people, I think we all have a friend who does this, can take like 45 minutes to an hour to choose what they're going to eat. And they get so caught up in like, well, this looks good, but this also looks good. And they cannot make these little simple decisions, which aren't life threatening, which at the end of the day isn't a big deal if you get the wrong meal. Obviously, we want to get the one we really wanted. But when you're choosing from like 5 good options or 10 good options or whatever it is, you know, we all know people who really struggle with those basic decisions. And that over analyzing kills the joy. It causes so much anxiety within them when their food actually arrives, because then they're like, oh, I wonder if I actually made the right decision. I should have got this. And they kind of beating themselves up. And I know this sounds so ridiculous, but I know people who do this. And maybe some of you listening to this do this. And that's just a sign like, hey, we're taking this way too seriously. We need to not overthink everything. I can tell you that in business, what I've learned to do is embrace messy action. It's going to get you way further. If you think you can overthink every little step and like plan for the worst in every situation, you're wasting your time and energy, because in 85% of the cases, the steps you take are going to have positive outcomes. That's just how it is. So if you spend tons of time for every little decision looking at all the negatives and positives and negatives and positives, I mean, by then you could have been 20 steps ahead, but you're still looking at the negatives and all the potential outcomes when the chances of any of those happening is so, so low. And if they do happen, you can work it out and just and move forward so much quicker than over analyzing. Like there's no value in over analyzing. A lot of decisions you make in business are reversible. So it's a waste of your time and energy. And again, that leads to stagnation, which is just the worst. When I think of like stagnation, I just think of like a little swampy pond with like mosquitoes. I don't know why, because mosquitoes can only really, I think they have to be in water that is super stagnant and like gross. And yeah, that's kind of the vibe. And that's what I think of when I think of a stagnant business. It's like, it's depressing, it's swampy, it's heavy, it's got mosquitoes. It's like not fun. So we don't want you there. We want you to shift out of that place, even if you're just moving at a gentle pace. That is beautiful. For some people, that's all they need. But we want you like flowing like a gentle river in your business. We don't want you in a swampy thing. We want you in a gentle river, or we want you in like building momentum at a faster river, but we don't actually want you going down waterfalls either way either. So yeah, we just want a beautiful, gentle momentum in your business. The other thing I want to quickly talk about is how overthinking can also lead to decision paralysis. So I see this all the time. This happens when you are faced with a decision. And you know what? I'm going to use the decision of investing in your business as an example, because obviously I see this when people come to us sometimes and they are a perfect fit for the program. They are in a not great place in their business, or they are doing well, but they're stagnant. Essentially, people come to us typically when they're stagnant, whether that means stagnant at like not making many sales, or stagnant at like $300,000 or $400,000 a year, or $600,000 a year, but they're kind of just in that same place. And so what can happen is they come and they're like wanting to do it, but they are also just like, oh, like, what if I don't see results? What if I don't show up for myself in my business? What if I actually don't open the online training? What if I don't come to calls? What if like this doesn't actually work for my business? Like, and they will start overthinking all the things, which, you know, is legitimate, and it causes a lot of fear. And that fear is there obviously just to keep them safe. So it's a very valid emotion, but it can lead to that decision paralysis where they actually aren't able to make a decision. And so what they say is, I need more time. And here's the reality. You don't need more time. You actually don't need more time to make these types of decisions. You know, you've been probably thinking about it for months before you even come on a call with our team or decided to make an investment. But typically, you don't need more time. Time is going to allow you to get stuck in that place of overthinking, indecision, and inaction. And that's again where the dreamers stay, like that place of indecision and inaction. There's nothing more draining than that. And I think a really good example of this is actually, you know, I don't know if anyone listening to this has been in the corporate world where you've made that decision kind of where you're like, oh my gosh, I've realized that I can't live this life forever. Like this corporate world life is killing me slowly. It's not terrible, but it's not the life I want to be living. And I know I'm going to have to leave at some point, but I'll think about it. Like I have time. I'm going to think about it. Do you know how many people think about that for like 5 years before taking any action? And you know that the longer that you think about it, the harder it is to make that decision. And it impacts your energy in the meantime. Same thing as like breaking up with someone. We all know, like, you probably know months before you break up, like, oh, this is not going to work. We're going to have to break up. But actually, like, making that decision and taking action on that and doing the breakup, we often put those things off for such a long time because it's scary, it's vulnerable, it's change, and our bodies hate change. And so they'd rather we just stay in the pain that we're in right now than take the required steps that lead to change, even if it's for the better. And it's the same in business. So we don't want to allow ourselves to sit in decision paralysis for days or weeks or months, because there's nothing more draining on your energy. Like it's just a horrible place to be. So look at, like, write out what are some of the things that you are feeling paralyzed by right now. What are the decisions you're going back and forth on? Don't make life so hard. Don't make business so hard on yourself. Like, write them out, make a decision, take action. Simple, super simple. And again, if you're like, that feels overwhelming, we just start small. Look at the smallest step that you can take. Maybe the smallest step you can take is actually like committing to posting every day. Maybe the smallest step you can take is, you know, getting yourself an accountability buddy, whatever it is. Let's get started on making those decisions and then taking the required action. And that like overthinking is also going to lead to missed opportunities. I'll be honest with you, like I won't do business with people who overthink. I think it's a waste of time. Like, I will not hire people who overthink. I will not do collaborations with people who overthink. I just have zero interest because the reality is they're not very successful in business. They just aren't. People who get like analysis paralysis over decisions, over basic decisions, it's just exhausting. And this actually, okay, I'm going to have to phrase this carefully, but I look for patterns in people, like in behaviors. Like I've always looked for patterns in behaviors, patterns in ways of thinking, patterns in doing things. It's why I'm obsessed with marketing and sales. And over the years, I've met a lot of business owners, a lot of really successful ones, a lot of new ones. And I've also met quite a lot of business owners who bought businesses that were already established, jewelry businesses already doing multiple six figures. And this is like, I was blown away the first time I came across people like this. And I've now seen a really strong pattern in this behavior. And it's just fascinating to me. But when you're a new business owner, you have to build that confidence in your decision-making abilities, and you scale to the level of problems you can handle and the level of decisions you're able to make. So for some people, they're able to like scale to multiple six figures much quicker because they are able to build that ability to handle problems and make decisions and trust themselves. But some people are just slower. Some people will never get to multiple six figures because they just aren't willing to put in the work to make those decisions and build that trust within themselves. And they overthink things, and they're just too slow for business, which I'm not saying too slow for business, but just too slow to make it big in business, which is okay. But what I've seen consistently with people who purchase existing businesses when they have no business background is that they make decisions like a newbie business owner. Like, I've never seen anything like this. It's so shocking that I've seen a pattern in this. And so, for example, I've seen these established businesses making multiple six figures with these brand new business owners who have been given everything by the people they bought it from. And they run these businesses into the ground very quickly because they are so slow at making decisions. They overthink every little thing. They ask ridiculous questions that somebody at that level who owns a business of that, like generating that revenue, wouldn't be asking those questions, wouldn't be overthinking like the basics essentially. And it's really interesting to see. And it shows you how much value there is in learning from the bottom up. Like, learning from the bottom up, because buying a business that's already established isn't going to solve your problems. It can actually just lead to more problems because you haven't become the person you need to be to handle problems at that level yet. You just haven't. You haven't developed your decision-making abilities. You haven't built your confidence. You haven't stepped into the version of you that can handle a multiple six-figure company at that point. So that's just something that's really interesting. And what I see is that those people typically miss a lot of opportunities. They say no, they take too long. And so people don't want to work with you when things don't align like that. It's not fun. It's not setting them up for success either. So we want everyone to get out of that place, and you can take baby steps and work through it. Because that overthinking just kills innovation. It kills the joy in business. It inhibits risk taking. It inhibits like experimenting in business. And that's like how you see results. That's how you see growth. And people who are resistant to change, people who are resistant to growth and testing, it's just exhausting to be around them, and it's exhausting to be in business with them. So you don't want to be that person. We want to shift out of that. And you're going to be super slow to making changes when you need to in business. Again, I've seen this. Multiple people run their business into the ground because they aren't good at making those decisions. And it's obviously also going to just increase your stress. It's going to lead to burnout potentially. It's going to decrease your productivity, and it's going to lead to you second guessing all your decisions. And it's going to take it's going to chip away at your self-confidence. This has been a longer episode than I planned, so I'm losing my voice, but it's going to erode your confidence and your morale, and it's going to make it hard for you to make good decisions. And I think we all know what it's like when you do get stuck in that place. And I don't want anyone to feel attacked when I'm saying this, but we've all been there, where you get in a place where it's just hard to make decisions and you lose momentum. There's nothing worse than losing momentum in business, because it's so hard to rebuild. I'd rather you moving slowly than not moving at all. Like, just keep moving slowly, keep pivoting. I always think of like a massive rock or massive boulder. If you have to try push a massive, massive boulder, it's going to be so hard if it's stagnant. But if it's just moving really slowly, you can move it and you can pivot and you can go sideways and you can do this. But if it's stagnant, if it's like stuck, it's so hard to get it started again. It's the same in business. So we don't want you to lose momentum. And we don't want to, there's so much I can go into here. I don't want to make this a super long episode, but I think I just want to remind you guys, like, we want to acknowledge the very real feelings, the very real fear that comes up in business. Acknowledge it, feel the feelings, cry if you want to, like, let it all out, and then make the decision that I feel this way. I feel a lot of fear. I feel a lot of discomfort. And I'm going to do what's required to move me closer to my goals. So I'm going to look at the smallest tolerable steps I can start taking, and I'm going to take those. And I can tell you almost certainly, when you start taking those steps, the minute you've made that decision and taken those steps, you're going to feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. It is so freeing. It is so energizing. It is just the best feeling. And I'm even thinking, one of my clients recently joined the academy, and it was a big decision for her to like invest in herself, invest in her business. And she was scared. She had so much fear. She had so much like uncertainty in terms of like, is she going to be able to do it? Is she going to make this work? And within like 24 hours of being in the program, she sent me a message and she's like, I just feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I feel like my joy for my business is coming back. I'm feeling creative again. I'm feeling excited again. I'm feeling like more confident to actually take the required steps. And it's so interesting to see how when we make those decisions and we take those actions that we know we need to take our business to the next level or get to our goals, get closer to our goals, it frees us. It gives us so much more energy. It makes it so much more fun. So I would love for you to go and take action on one of those things that you've been putting off. Look at like what brings up a lot of fear for you. What is something that I always like to think about like your game-changing things that you could do. What is one lever we could pull? If there was just one thing you could do that would have the biggest impact on shifting gears in your life and in your business, what is that one thing? For some of you, it's maybe like cutting down hours at your job so you have more time to work on your business. Maybe that's your game-changing shift. Maybe for some of you, it's actually hiring your first employee so that they can do the things that you don't need to be doing, and you can focus on those key things that only you can do best. Maybe the game-changing thing is you're not too sure what you should be doing, and maybe you are ready for support. Maybe you are ready for coaching. And maybe you're like, yeah, you know what? I need to get into a program. I need that support system. I need to look at the strategies I'm doing. I need to know that I'm doing everything in the most effective way possible to actually change the game in my business. So look at what that is for you. What is that one lever you can pull that is going to have the biggest impact on shifting you closer to the version of you want to be, the business that you want to be building? And write that down. And then I want to encourage you to go take action on that this week. Go do it, whatever it is, and let me know. I'd love to hear like what those steps are that you're taking. Send me a message on Instagram. It's Robin Clark Coaching, or snap a photo and tag me on your stories. I love that as well. But I don't want you guys just listening to the podcast every week and not doing anything. So let's go take action. Go take action on that one thing that you know is going to change the game for you in your business. And just remember, like, if you want to write this down, write this down. But just because your feelings are valid does not mean they should dictate your behavior. It is such a game-changing thing to remember every single day in your business, because we feel so many feelings. We feel thousands of little feelings every single day. And if I listened to all my feelings, I would literally be doing nothing. So we want to just acknowledge our feelings, feel the feelings, and then take the required action anyway. So I'm going to wrap it up there. And I do just want to say, for anyone who is ready for growth, who is ready for expansion, who is ready to lean into the fear, lean into the discomfort, and actually shift gears in their business, to take intentional and strategic action consistently in their business for the next 90 days. Come and join me in the Jewelry Business Academy. We want you to be in a very different place in the next 3 months, which will be towards the end of summer, actually. Like, let's shift the game in your business. Let's make this the summer that everything changes. And let's make sure you're actually implementing the right strategies. Let's get you working more intentionally. Let's get you actually being able to enjoy your summer and enjoy your business again. And let's get you moving closer towards your goals with our incredible community of other business owners, all doing the same thing as you, all building and scaling their jewelry businesses. If that feels exciting, you can head to jewelrybusinessacademy.ca to learn more, and you can book in a call with one of our elite coaches who will do a free strategy call for you. So go ahead and do that. Like, if that feels like that's your one lever, go do it. Go book it in now, and we'll see you on the other side. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'm looking forward to chatting to you next week.